I'm just doing the tutorial of the jungle mythical scene. So we'll set up our artboard. We'll set it up at 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. So you would have got this window up by going to File and New at the top of the screen, or Create New, or Control N. Okay, sorry, 1080. That's okay. We'll have our resolution at 150, and we'll leave all the other settings as is. Okay, so you should be left with something like so. I'm just going to clear away some of these things out of my screen. I can see my layers panel is here. Your screen might look slightly different to mine because I'm working on a Mac, so you just need to bear that in mind. By default, my crop little settings are activated because my crop tool is activated here. So I'll just go back to the move tool to turn that off. Okay, so I can zoom in and out by going to Control plus, Control minus. Okay, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to File and Place Embedded, and you're going to place in the file called the, sorry, now find it in my the landscape. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. This is actually the finished image that I'm sticking in, which I didn't want to do. So File and Place Embedded, and it's the landscape. Okay, and I'm going to, from the corners, to keep it in proportion, I'm going to drag out the corners. I want to make sure that I've as much of the kind of foreground as possible, because I want to sit the tiger on the foreground. So I will leave the top part of it off, and I'll keep in as much of this kind of grassy area as possible. So when I'm happy, I'll press enter. Okay, now straight away I'm going to save it. So File and Save As, and I'm going to give it a name. So I'm just going to call it Jungle Composition, and I'm just going to put my initial on it because I know we had one already, and I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. Okay, so that means that all your layers are contained, and we can edit it again. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rasterize this landscape layer over here. If you can't see your layers, go to Window and Layers and just make sure this is checked on. Okay, so I'll rasterize this layer because there is a chance at some stage I might be editing it. So I'll right click on the layer and I'll rasterize layer. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to File and Open the tiger. Okay, so we're not going to File in Place, we're going to File and Open, or Control O. And I'm going to find the tiger. Okay. Oh, he's beautiful. So I've zoomed out, Control minus. We're going to learn a new way now of cutting out a shape. So I'm going to unlock my layer first. So double click on the layer to unlock it. Okay. And we're going to use something called a quick mask mode. Okay. So number one, okay, make sure your default colors here are the black and white. Okay, so we're over here on the left hand side at the bottom of our little color pickers. Okay, mine, because probably the last time I used this I was using pink maybe, so I'm just going to click on the small default icon here. That'll bring me to black and white. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select Edit in Quick Mask Mode. So Edit in Quick Mask Mode, and I have clicked that and it's on. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my paintbrush. So in my case it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down. It's the brush tool. Okay, if you hold it down you'll see some other options there, or a shortcut to the brush tool is B. Now as you can see, my brush tool is teeny tiny here, so I need to right click on my artboard, and I'm going to change the size of it, and you can also change the hardness of it. So when I hover over the tiger now, I can see I'm going to make it quite big for the minute until I'm looking for something more detailed. And I start painting. right? Now we'll all get different colors, okay, depending on what our settings are, right? So mine is green. I know on my other computer it's kind of a reddy color. So what I'm doing is I'm coloring in the tiger, okay? But I'm trying to be mindful not to go too close to the edge. I'm going to reduce the size of my brush when I go closer to the edge, okay? You can kind of change the opacity a little bit if you want, just so that you can, it doesn't make any difference, it's just so that you can see what you're doing. And I know with this it's very difficult because we've got a grassy area. The aim of this is that this is a different way of making a selection, a different way of getting our marching ants, okay? And what we're going to do is everything inside or outside this is going to be selected. So we'll have our marching ants, okay? So do you see what I'm doing here? Now, if I make a mistake and I go too far out here, I can change my default colors with this arrow. So white is in front and I can almost paint this back in. So you're saying, what in God's name am I doing here? But it will all make sense in a minute. Okay, and I'm going to change them back here again. Now I'm going to reduce the size of my brush by right clicking. I'm going to instead now go for a smaller brush here around his paws. If you, undo, Control Z, the last one. Sorry, where's my brush gone? Sometimes it's easier to click, click, click because if you do big long brush strokes and then you have to go back, sometimes you have to go back very far. So the aim is that you fill in the tiger, if you know what I mean. It's not going to be perfect. It's just a way of demonstrating another way of doing it. You're going to have some green grass in here that maybe isn't ideal. I'm going to make the brush a bit bigger again. So this is an alternative to using your pen tool to cut out the tiger. It won't work in every circumstance. If you have, for example, like a vase or something, a really straight shape, it's probably not going to work. It might, you can try it, but it's an alternative. Okay, and it's something, and it's just to remember the steps, so you will need to write down the steps involved, making sure that you have kind of your black as your foreground colour, your white as your background colour. You're using your brush tool. You've got your quick mask mode on. Okay, so I think this should be pretty okay. My layer is unlocked. Okay, not perfect, but I can always fix it up when I bring it in, as long as I just have enough. No, that was pretty important. I hadn't some of his hair, his fur or whatever it is. Okay. Okay, I'm happy with him now. Zoom out. Now, the last step on this, I'm just gonna, sorry, you could keep going at this. The last step now is to click on the quick mask mode again, over on the left hand side, almost the bottom. And see, we've got our shape now selected. So actually by default on this, it's just the setting. It's selected the area outside of the tiger. Now if yours is selecting the area inside of the tiger, if you know what I mean, you will go to select inverse. Select an inverse, but in my case I don't need to do that. So I'm going to hit delete and Control D to deselect. And I'm just going to get my crop tool and drag this inwards. Now you can see there is little bits of green I've brought with me. It's very difficult when you've got pieces of grass, but we might be able to rectify that when we bring it in. Okay, so we're going to File and Save As, and we're going to call it, so we're going to save it as a TIFF, and we're going to call it Tiger, and I'm going to call it Cut Out, Tiger Cut Out, and TIFF. Save. Save transparency, yes, and OK. Okay. Okay.